So, have you ever actually wondered how a totally brilliant concept survives that brutal journey from a pristine university lab all the way to a gritty factory floor? Well, conventional wisdom usually tells us to just let private enterprise handle it, that the government should just get out of the way. But as we're going to see today, Beijing completely flips that script. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the nuts and bolts of a massive, state-backed innovation machine. And hey, if you are diving into technology and economic development topics, like, say, if you are comprehensively preparing for UPSC Paper 3, this ecosystem is an absolute textbook case study. We're going to look at exactly how China strategically binds universities, startups, industry, and the state together to relentlessly push the boundaries of AI and robotics.
Okay, here is our blueprint for today. First, crossing the valley of death. Second, Beijing's innovation engine. Third, the state as investor. And finally, the humanoid robot push. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1, Crossing the Valley of Death.
The Valley of Death. It sounds super dramatic, right? But in the tech and innovation space, it's a very, very real thing. It is basically this daunting gap where you try to translate promising, early-stage scientific research into an actual commercially viable venture. Because, look, getting a cool results in a lab, that is really only half the battle. Countless brilliant ideas literally just perish right here in this valley. They never reach the consumer market, simply because they don't have the right bridge to get across.
China is aiming to bridge that exact gap, and they are doing it with a highly intentional top-down strategy. It's designed to literally pull technology right through that valley. They don't leave this ecosystem to chance. It relies on a really strong undercurrent of fierce competition mixed with heavy state involvement, creating this coordinated push to turn early-stage research into stuff you can actually buy and use.
So how do they actually pull this off? Well, Beijing set up what they call an intelligent platform for results commercialization. It obviously starts with university research, but the crucial make-or-break link in the middle, it is a group of specialized tech managers. These folks act as a vital transmission line. They're the bridge. Why? Because they intimately understand both the hyper-complex tech coming out of the lab and the harsh practical realities of the market. They take real-world problems from companies, take them straight to the universities, and essentially say, hey, build an answer for this.
And just to give you a sense of the sheer staggering volume of this system, in the year 2025 alone, the city's platform executed 1.04 lakh tech contracts. That is over 100,000 distinct bridges built between ideas and industry in a single year. It just goes to show the massive scale of this intelligent platform, ensuring all that expensive research doesn't just sit collecting dust on an academic shelf.
Moving right along to Section 2, Beijing's innovation engine.
Look, every machine needs an engine block, right? And for Beijing, that engine is the Zhongguancun Science Park up in the city's north. This place is the beating heart of tech talent and research. It's at the absolute forefront of tech innovation in China, right up there with places like Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Hangzhou. The state basically comes in and provides all the hard infrastructure, creating a literal physical space for innovation to cluster together and thrive.
And the fuel for this engine? It's the top minds in the country. Zhongguancun is home to the nation's most important cluster of research universities. We're talking heavy hitters like Peking University and Tsinghua University leading the pack. But it doesn't stop at just academia. These universities are the foundation that directly births high-tech enterprises. For example, it is home to cutting-edge AI startups like Moonshot. They were started by Tsinghua grads and recently made massive waves globally with their Kimi K3 open-source model. There's a quote from Yang Shuling, who directs Beijing's top economic planning body, and it captures this perfectly. She calls it a closed loop from project discovery to incubation. And that's exactly it. It's incredibly intentional. By clustering the top research universities and the best talent all in one single place, they form this continuous, virtuous cycle. The universities pump out the talent, that talent provides the intellectual spark for innovation, and the success of that innovation loops right back to reinforce the universities. All right, Section 3, the state as investor.
So here is a really crucial point to understand. The state isn't just cheering from the sidelines. They take a direct financial stake in these companies alongside private venture capital. But state capital behaves very differently, and it brings some clear upsides and downsides. On the upside, you get what's called patient capital. The state can absorb heavy losses and take on long-term risks that a private VC firm just couldn't stomach. This patient support is a huge reason for the sheer speed and scale of China's innovation. But there are real downsides too, namely wasteful spending and a pretty severe lack of due diligence. When state funds throw money around without rigorously vetting the investments, things get messy.
In fact, this lack of due diligence became a massive headache for Chinese regulators. See, you had intense competition between different local government clusters. Pair that with a crash in land sales, which is how local governments usually make their money, and it led to this massive spending spree. Local governments were just pouring funds into any company they hoped might become the next national champion, often without the capacity to properly vet them. It got so out of hand that in June, the central government had to step in with strict new rules to tightly govern how local funds spend their money, demanding way more oversight from the center.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 4, the humanoid robot push.
Okay, so if Zhongguancun in the north is where the brainpower lives, the Yizhuang industrial cluster down in Beijing's southern suburbs is where it all hits the factory floor. This is a hub-and-spokes model centered right around the Beijing Humanoid Robot Innovation Center. They are actively funneling talent into a bunch of robotics companies dotted all around the area. And the ultimate goal here? As the head of embodied AI there explains it, they want to build a full, robust supply chain that is 100% ready for mass production.
But you might be wondering, where are all these robots actually going to go? Well, the focus is expanding really fast. The goal is to move humanoid robots away from just doing heavy lifting on factory floors and integrate them directly into our daily lives. And a massive, maybe even surprising driver for this is healthcare, specifically catering to an aging society. They're pushing research hard to get these robots to perform incredibly delicate movements, getting them ready for those exact everyday caregiving scenarios.
What's truly mind-blowing here, though, is the timeline. We are not talking about distant sci-fi concepts. This is a hard, locked-in production schedule for a state-run company in Yizhuang called Lingi Tech. They literally started production this past April and have their capacity mapped out for the next 5 to 6 years. By the end of 2027, they plan to be churning out 20,000 robots a year. By 2028, that jumps to 1 lock units. And by 2030, a staggering 5 lock units annually. They are aiming straight for the top 3 producers in the whole world.
Now, how do you make 500,000 robots financially viable? Well, the tech is advancing so fast that it's driving prices down. As their manufacturing shifts from semi-automation to full automation, Lingi Tech's vice president estimates the costs are going to be slashed in half, a full 50% reduction by the year 2030. And it's exactly that massive drop in cost that makes throwing robots into healthcare and daily life an actual, realistic possibility.
So as we pull all these threads together, the full picture of China's industrial policy really comes into focus. Yes, you've got the state subsidies for land, the tax breaks. Those are the famous flashy parts of the machine that everyone talks about. But at the end of the day, it is the state's organized intellectual backing and how they enable talent that truly makes this work. It's that perfectly closed loop between the university, the tech manager, the patient state capital, and the industrial park.
Which leaves us with this one final thought. We've seen just how meticulously Beijing is working to bridge that valley of death, throwing massive state resources at pushing AI and robotics out of the lab and into the real world. So as they refine this model, and if they actually hit those staggering production targets for humanoid robots, what does that level of mass-produced, state-backed technology mean for the rest of the world's tech landscape? That is a massive question, and it is one we are all going to be watching very, very closely over the next decade. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.